For 3 years, he pursued the Ice Queen captain, tried to charm her times, and she'd remained utterly untouchable. He was all long legs, broad shoulders, and a lean waist, but she wouldn't even give him a second glance. After the last rejection, he snatched the phone from the desk and dialed a number he hadn't called in 3 years. "I'll marry the girl from Havenwood." Silence stretched on the other end before Arthur's voice came through, laced with disbelief. "Are you serious? Take it or leave it." "No, no, no." His father's voice cracked with excitement. I can't believe it. This is wonderful. You've finally come to your senses. Dad will arrange the wedding immediately, make sure it's a grand affair. Isn't this what you wanted, Ethan?" Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in his eyes. "Don't bother with the wedding arrangements. You're not invited, and don't you dare bring your precious first love and her son anywhere near me. Give me $1 by the end of the summer. I'll take it with me. Are you trying to cut ties with me, Arthur?" Arthur's voice dropped, incredulous. "Ethan, I'm still your father." "Father? You think you deserve that title?" Ethan scoffed. "Just remember to send the money, otherwise the wedding's off." He hung up. He knew his father desperately needed him for this marriage alliance in the small town, so he'd agree to any condition. Ethan looked up, meeting his own gaze in the mirror. There seemed a faint resemblance to his mother. 10 years. His mother had been dead for 10 years, and he still couldn't forget the way Arthur had practically danced on her grave to welcome his new family. He just turned. His mother was barely in the ground when Arthur brought home his old flame and her son, Owen Grant. That day, Owen, dressed in a brand new blue and white striped shirt, had timidly called him brother. Ethan had responded by grabbing the nearest heavy object, an incense burner, and cracking it over Arthur's forehead. He was shipped off to Europe that very night. Over the years, he let his father spoil his mistress and her son back in the States while he, in retaliation, burned through his father's money abroad, living a life of excess and debauchery until 3 years ago, when an urgent call from Arthur had summoned him back. There was a new government initiative, something about fostering connections between urban centers and rural communities. His father, besotted with his old flame, naturally doted on Owen, his stepson. He couldn't bear for Owen to marry someone he didn't love or be inconvenienced by this rural assignment, so he decided to send Ethan, his biological son, to the sticks instead. Ethan had smashed everything he could in the Miller mansion, including his father's favorite porcelain vase. Arthur, trembling with rage, had him practically hogtied and delivered to Captain Maya Holloway's National Guard training base that same night, forcing him to live, eat, and train with her. "Maya, my dear, do an old friend a favor. Help me knock some sense into this ungrateful son of mine." Maya Holloway was the daughter of his father's old friend. Young to be a captain, she was notoriously known as the Ice Queen. The woman was stunning, one in a million, with long, lean legs, a hybrid nose, a uniform that accentuated her broad shoulders and narrow waist. Her aura was as cold as a blizzard on a mountaintop. Obligated to Arthur, her attitude towards Ethan was even stricter than towards her own subordinates. The very first day, she'd made him do drills until he dropped. A rich kid like him had never endured such hardship. His feet had swollen restlessly that night. He'd cursed her out in his room for hours, but the next morning, a tube of muscle rub had appeared on his nightstand. Maya Holloway was as cold as ice, yet somehow, when he'd had a stomachache in the middle of the night and the infirmary was locked, she'd climbed through a window to get him medicine. When he'd failed his shooting assessment, she'd kept him training until dawn, finally steadying his wrist and murmuring, "Aim carefully before you pull the trigger." When he'd had a fever and was delirious, she'd coolly remarked that he was a grown man acting like a baby, yet she'd stayed up all night watching over him. Ethan's heart, adrift for so many years, had slowly, unexpectedly, begun to heal in this harsh environment. He'd fallen for Maya Holloway, but everyone said Captain Holloway's only passion was serving her country. She had no time for romance. He hadn't believed it. Everyone had feelings, desires. Was she pretending at being so stoic? So, he'd started trying to charm her in every way imaginable. On rainy days, he'd forget his umbrella, showing up before her drenched. She'd hand him a jacket without a flicker of expression. "Put this on." On his birthday, he prepared a box full of gifts. She'd picked up the intercom. Security, Send someone to dispose of these items. During training, he'd feigned heat stroke, hoping to lean on her shoulder. She'd sidestepped him and called to a medic. Stretcher. Maya Holloway truly seemed to be made of ice, but she was different with Owen Grant. When Owen spilled coffee on her map, she merely said softly, "Careful, it's hot." The hideous red string bracelet Owen had made for her, she'd worn it for 3 years. Owen could even barge into her office during a meeting, and she'd only glance at him with a hint of exasperation before returning to her files. Everyone knew why. During a mission years ago, she'd been caught in an avalanche. Owen, the accompanying medic, had searched for her in the frozen wilderness for 3 days and 3 nights, carrying her back from the brink of death. A life debt she'd never forget. And what was he? Just some rich kid his father had dumped on her to be reformed, the exact type of person she despised. Last night, he'd seen Owen leaving her office, a satisfied smirk on his face. He didn't dare imagine what had happened. Ethan Miller might be reckless, but he wasn't desperate enough to compete with Owen Grant for a woman. Getting married in some backwater town might be for the best. At least there'd be no Maya Holloway, no Owen Grant, none of this crap that made his chest ache. Ethan took a deep breath, grabbed a change of clothes, and headed to the communal showers. Wouldn't you know it? He turned the faucet and no water. He glanced at his watch. Maya should still be on the training field. She wouldn't be back for a while. He dragged out a large plastic tub, filled it with cold water from the tap in his small living area, then added hot water he'd heated. The temperature was just right. He sank into it. He'd been soaking for less than 5 minutes when he suddenly heard Maya's voice outside talking to a few of her subordinates. He froze. The doorknob was turning. Out. Maya suddenly snapped. The door slammed shut. He heard muffled voices from outside. What's wrong? I think Mr. Miller's in there taking a bath. I just got a peek, but man, he's built. If I married a guy like Ethan Miller. Wow, you dream on. Quiet. Maya's voice was laced with anger. Another word of gossip, and you're all doing extra clicks. Dismissed. Footsteps scattered hastily. Ethan leisurely dried himself and got dressed. When he opened the door, Maya was standing in the shadows of the hallway, her eyes dangerously cold. Who told you to bathe in here? Ethan Miller. Are you so shameless you'd stoop to this just to get my attention? Ethan looked up at her. I wasn't trying to get your attention, and I didn't mean anything by it. The communal showers didn't mean anything? Weren't you the one openly soaking in your living space? Weren't you the one stark naked? She advanced on him step by step, the sarcasm in her eyes like daggers. Weren't you the one who insisted on sleeping in my quarters during the thunderstorm? Weren't you the one who accidentally fell into my arms during training? Ethan Miller, I'll say this one last time. I'm not interested in you. Your father dumped you here. Once this reform period is over, you and I will have nothing more to do with each other. Her words were like a dull knife, slowly twisting in his chest. In 3 years, he'd heard her say similar things countless times, yet each instance still left him breathless with pain. To the track, she glanced at her wristwatch. 3 miles, recite regulations while you run. Now, immediately. He bit down hard on his lower lip, the taste of blood spreading in his mouth. For a split second, he almost blurted it out. I'm not interested in you anymore either. I'm getting married soon, starting a family. I'll be out of your sight for good. But how would she react? He took a deep breath, said nothing, and turned away, his boots thudding heavily. The moonlight on the track was stark and pale. Ethan ran, shouting at the top of his lungs. First, obedience to orders is paramount. Second, strict adherence to discipline. Windows in the barracks lit up one by one. Heads poked out. Mr. Miller getting punished again? Tisk, with a handsome face like that, he could have anyone. Why chase after Captain Holloway, who's clearly not interested in men? Yeah, if Captain Holloway were to date anyone, it'd be Dr. Grant, right? He saved her life after all. I've never seen her show special treatment to anyone but Dr. Grant. The hush comments pricked his ears like needles. He ran faster, his voice growing louder. Third, fear no sacrifice. Fourth, be brave and unyielding. Sweat streamed into his eyes, stinging. He swiped at his face, unsure if it was sweat or tears. 10th, the world suddenly spun. He staggered, his forehead slamming hard onto the ground. A flash of crimson filled his vision. Captain Holloway, Mr. Miller fainted, someone exclaimed. Leave him. Her voice was as cold as ice. Continue training. Ethan forced himself up, blood from his forehead trickling down his brow bone, sticky and cold. He wiped it with his hand. His palm came away scarlet. I don't need you to care about me either. His voice trembled, but he stubbornly straightened his body. Maya Holloway stood a short distance away, posture ramrod straight, her expression calm, without a flicker of emotion. He laughed, a laugh that made his eyes burn, then turned and continued running. First, obedience to orders is paramount. Second, strict adherence to discipline. Blood mixed with sweat, blurring his vision. He didn't know how long he ran or how many times he recited the rules. He only knew his throat tasted of blood, and his legs felt like lead, each step like treading on knives. 10th, never betray. The last word barely out. His vision went black, and he collapsed completely. Dimly, he felt someone helping him up. He managed to pry his eyes open. Maya Holloway's hand was in his line of sight. Didn't you say you wouldn't care about me? Maya didn't stop walking, her voice firm. As long as you're under my command, I'm responsible for your safety. So that was it. He suddenly laughed, a laugh that made his chest ache. All those nights she'd climbed through windows to get him medicine, those nights she'd watched over his fever, those seemingly casual acts of concern, all just responsibility. Don't worry, his voice grew fainter. I'll be gone soon. He thought he heard Maya ask, what do you mean? But he couldn't hold on any longer and passed out completely. When he woke up again, Ethan found himself lying on his bunk in the barracks, the wound on his forehead bandaged. He touched the gauze. His fingertips were cold. The door opened softly, and Owen Grant walked in, carrying a medical tray, a gentle, almost weak smile on his face. Ethan, you're awake. Ethan's expression turned cold instantly. I'll let you in. Maya asked me to come. Owen's voice was smooth, almost melodic. She said you were hurt and asked me to bandage you up. He paused, then added, Ethan, why are you always so careless in getting hurt? You don't really think this will make Maya pay more attention to you, do you? Too bad for you. His smile widened. Your father is mine, your home is mine, and Maya? She's mine too. Ethan stared at him coldly. You're the son of a home wrecker. Who gave you the right to provoke me? Get out. Owen didn't get angry. Instead, his smile grew wider. Yes, I'm the son of the other woman, but this son of the other woman has everything. He tilted his head, his eyes filled with pity. And you, the son of the rightful wife, have nothing. It's quite amusing, isn't it? As he spoke, he took a small bottle of medicine from his pocket and gently placed it by the bed. Here's the medicine. Remember to apply it later. Ethan shot out his hand, but Owen, as if anticipating it, stepped back smoothly, grabbing the medicine bottle from the nightstand. His smile innocent. Are you going to tell me to get out again, Ethan, and then smash this bottle? He blinked, his tone deceptively naive. In that case, let me help you. Before the words were out, he snatched the bottle and slammed it violently onto the floor. Amidst the sound of shattering glass, he staggered back, collapsing among the shards. The door burst open, and Maya Holloway strode in. The first thing she saw was Owen sitting amidst the broken glass, his knee bleeding, while Ethan leaned against the headboard, watching him with a blank expression. Explain. Maya's voice was like ice. Ethan closed his eyes. He remembered the last time Owen had framed him like this. He'd explained, but what had it gotten him? Maya only ever believed Owen. So, this time, he couldn't even be bothered to explain. Didn't you see everything? He looked up, a sarcastic smile playing on his lips. What else is there to explain? Maya's eyes grew colder. Ethan Miller, you're incorrigible, she said frigidly. Your punishment is, Maya. Owen quickly grabbed her sleeve. Ethan's still injured, don't punish him. Maya frowned. Owen gently tugged her arm again, his voice pleading. Let go. Just make him write an apology report, okay? Maya glanced at him and finally relented. Fine. Ethan watched this scene, his heart feeling like it was being squeezed mercilessly. So, even someone like Maya Holloway would make exceptions for Owen Grant. He suddenly laughed. Captain Holloway, you have terrible taste. Maya's gaze sharpened. What do you mean? He wanted to say she was blind for falling for someone like Owen. But before he could speak, Owen let out a small, ouch, and clutched his knee, frowning. Maya, as expected, immediately forgot her inquiry and rushed to support him. What's wrong? My knee hurts. He bit his lip, looking aggrieved. Ethan watched coldly as Maya helped Owen leave, tossing over her shoulder before she left. Get that report to me when it's done. The door was left ajar. Ethan sat at the desk, writing the apology. If he glanced up, he could see Maya in the hallway, half kneeling, tending to Owen's knee. Her movements were so gentle, her brows slightly furrowed, as if she were handling something incredibly fragile. So, she could make that expression too. Ethan pulled his gaze back, the tip of his pen scoring a harsh line across the paper. Finished. When Ethan handed over the report, they had just finished with the first aid. Maya took the report, skimmed it, her face changing abruptly. What is this you've written? What do you mean you were wrong for not catching Owen when he pretended to fall? Wrong for not pressing his hand into the shards, so he'd be in too much pain to ever try such a pathetic stunt again. Ethan met her gaze calmly. That's just the truth of it. A vein throbbed at Maya's temple. She looked about to explode. Maya, Owen grabbed her arm. Ethan's just been injured, don't be angry. Maya's eyes were sharp, about to speak, but Owen tugged her again. Maya, let it go. He turned to Ethan, smiling gently. Ethan, we're going for a picnic at the state park later, by the lake. Why don't you come with us? Ethan was not interested, but Owen had already linked his arm through Ethan's affectionately. Come on, Ethan, don't be mad. I'll help you. Ethan wanted to shake him off, but Maya was standing right there, her eyes fixed on him with a warning. He suddenly felt very tired. In the end, Ethan was dragged along, sitting in the back seat, watching Owen expertly open the front passenger door for Maya. He finally understood why Owen had insisted he come. The guy wanted him to witness it firsthand, all of Maya's special treatment for Owen. When the car started, Owen accidentally brushed Maya's hand as she shifted gears. She didn't pull away the instant their fingertips touched. Ethan remembered last month during training. When he'd brushed her hand, she'd immediately wiped it 3 times with an antiseptic wipe. Maya, try this. Owen broke off a piece of brownie, his fingertips dusted with powdered sugar, and offered it toward her mouth, accidentally smudging a button on her uniform. Normally, if someone dirted Maya's uniform, she'd give them a cold lecture for half an hour. But now, as Owen exclaimed and tried to wipe it off, she merely looked down, letting him fuss. It was an indulgence he'd never seen from her. When the picnic blanket was spread, Owen suddenly exclaimed, I forgot my water bottle. Maya immediately handed him hers. Ethan stared at the water bottle. Last time he'd accidentally picked it up, she'd snatched it back, her face cold, saying, I'm a bit of a germaphobe. But now, after Owen drank from it, he deliberately left a little. Maya, thanks, here you go. She actually took it back and drank from it. All day, Maya's attention was solely on Owen. Ethan was like an invisible man, silently trailing behind them, watching all their intimate interactions until Owen raised his smartphone, smiling. Maya, let's take a selfie. Maya never took photos, but this time, she surprisingly didn't refuse. With no one else to ask, she handed the phone directly to Ethan. Take it. Ethan took the phone, looking at them through the lens. Maya stood behind Owen, one hand lightly resting on his waist, as if ready to protect him at any moment. He pressed the shutter button. When he handed the phone back, she glanced at him, her brow slightly furrowed, seemingly a little surprised. In the past, he would have thrown a fit, insisted on squeezing into the picture, or deliberately taking a blurry shot. But today, he did nothing. In fact, from beginning to end, he hadn't moved an inch closer to her. She stared at him as if wanting to say something, but Owen suddenly interjected with a smile. Should I take one of you too? Ethan's always liked you. It'd be a good memento. Maya's face turned cold instantly. Unnecessary. She looked at Ethan, her voice devoid of any warmth. I will never like him. Ethan tugged at the corner of his mouth. Funny, he didn't like her anymore either. Just then, the sky suddenly darkened, and large raindrops began to fall. Maya tossed her jacket to Owen to shield him from the rain, her tone cool. You two wait here. I'll go get the car. After she strode off, Owen's demeanor changed instantly, his voice dripping with sarcasm. See that, Ethan? No matter how much you try to woo her, she only has eyes for me. Ethan couldn't be bothered with him. He turned to leave, but then he heard Owen scream. A snake darted out from the grass and bit Owen viciously on the ankle. Owen thrashed his leg wildly, actually flinging the snake towards Ethan. Ethan had no time to dodge. A sharp pain shot through his calf, His vision went black, and he fainted. When he regained consciousness, Ethan found himself on a stretcher, the urgent voice of a doctor in his ear. Two men bitten by a venomous snake, but the bite locations are different. Mr. Grant's is more severe. The venom has already spread, but the hospital is out of anti-venom. Maya's voice was calm and decisive. I have some in my quarters. I've already sent someone to get it. Soon, one of her subordinates ran up, panting, but holding only one vial of anti-venom. Captain, there's only one dose left. Who do we save first? The air instantly froze. Maya Holloway remained silent for a long time, so long that Ethan's consciousness began to blur again. Finally, she spoke. Save Owen first. The doctor froze. Captain Holloway, this is a matter of life and death. Mr. Miller's condition can wait a bit longer, but Mr. Grant's. Maya's voice was icy. I said save Owen first. Ethan laughed until tears streamed down his face. Then he completely lost consciousness. He wasn't afraid of death. He was just afraid of his life ending like this. In the last moments before his consciousness faded, he vaguely remembered many things. His mother's early death, his father who only had eyes for his mistress's son. When he was studying abroad, he'd been so lonely he couldn't sleep night after night. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of ending it all, but those people weren't dead yet. Why should he die? Later, when he met Maya Holloway, the only thing he wanted to do was to tear off her cold mask, to make her indifferent eyes reflect only his image. She wasn't interested in him. That was fine. He could love, and he could let go. He still had so much he hadn't done, so much more of a better life to live. Even if he was being forced to marry in some remote town, he believed he could still make a good life for himself. So, he didn't want to die, but it seemed he no longer had a choice. When he woke up again, he was in a hospital. A doctor was changing his dressing. Seeing him open his eyes, she breathed a sigh of relief. You're finally awake. I'm not dead. His voice was hoarse. It was a close call, the doctor said, still shaken. Luckily, another batch of anti-venom was rerouted to the hospital just in time. Otherwise, it would have been really dangerous. Ethan managed a weak smile. What about Owen Grant? The doctor, thinking he was concerned, smiled. He's fine. His injury wasn't that serious to begin with, and Captain Holloway has been taking care of him. As she changed his dressing, she chatted on about how well Maya had been treating Owen, personally feeding him water, staying up all night with him, even putting her military calls on hold. Ethan listened calmly, a strange lack of emotion in his heart. It was odd. He wasn't sad anymore. The venom is cleared. You can be discharged after another day or two of observation, the doctor finally said. Ethan nodded. That same evening, he checked himself out of the hospital. Back at his barracks, he began to pack his things, clothes, his journal, the pocket watch his mother had left him. One by one, they went into a suitcase. Halfway through packing, the door was suddenly thrown open. Ethan turned, stunned. Maya Holloway stood in the doorway, looking like she'd rushed through a storm. Her uniform was disheveled, her breathing ragged, as if she'd hurried back. He'd never seen her like this. She was always so calm and composed, every button done up to the very top, but now her collar was open, and her eyes churned with an emotion he couldn't decipher. Why didn't you say you were being discharged? Ethan's voice was calm. Why should I? You don't care if I live or die, do you? She was momentarily speechless, her throat working as if something was caught in it. After a long moment, she said quietly, You found out. But a moment later, she added, her voice hardening, Owen saved my life. I can't let anything happen to him. Ethan looked down and continued folding his clothes, his tone even. Oh, you don't need to explain to me. That was your anti-venom. You can give it to whomever you want. She was struck silent again. The air congealed for a few seconds. Then she noticed he was packing, and her eyes narrowed. She suddenly grabbed his wrist. What are you doing? Ethan, startled by her sudden action, frowned and pulled his hand away. He wanted to say sarcastically, Can't you tell I'm packing? But for some reason, he ended up saying mildly, Just organizing my clothes. This dump you call a base. You have to air things out constantly, or they get damp. Her tense shoulders seemed to relax slightly. Her tone reverted to its usual coolness. This isn't your penthouse. I never said I wanted to live in a penthouse. He didn't look up. And I won't be living in one anymore. She frowned, clearly not understanding his meaning. But a moment later, Her expression turned cold again. Are you planning to live on base for the rest of your life? I told you, don't cling to me. Get yourself straightened out and go back home as soon as possible. He couldn't be bothered to explain. He continued packing, silent. She stood nearby, quiet for a moment, then suddenly said, I'm at my quarters tonight. He didn't reply. She repeated, her voice a little lower. I mean, Owen's recovered. I sent him home. Your injuries were more serious. If it hurts tonight, call me to redress it. Ethan's movements paused. So, she still remembered he was afraid of pain, still remembered when they'd first met. He'd scraped his knee and cried from the pain. She'd scolded him with a cold face while gently applying ointment to his wound with her fingertip. No need. Ethan snapped back to reality, his voice calm. I'm not afraid of pain anymore. He stuffed the last piece of clothing into a suitcase and looked up at her. If you have nothing else, you can leave. Weren't you the one who always talked about propriety between men and women? Aren't you afraid I'll deliberately try to provoke you again? Maya's face turned frigid. She turned and slammed the door behind her. It wasn't until midnight that a piercing alarm shattered the stormy night. Ethan shot up in bed. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Rain hammered against the glass like a barrage of bullets. He'd just pulled open the curtains when he saw Maya in a raincoat rushing outside. They collided in the hallway. The storm caused the river levee to collapse, the units being deployed for disaster relief. Her brow was furrowed, rainwater dripping from her chin. Stay in your room. Don't want. Before he could answer, she plunged into the downpour. Ethan stood by the window, watching the unit's trucks drive out of the main gate. Mrs. Henderson from mess hall next door suddenly ran out, crying. My grandson is still in the temporary housing by the river. What are we going to do? Without a second thought, Ethan grabbed a raincoat and followed her. Half of the levee had already collapsed. Murky floodwaters carrying branches and debris surged downstream. Maya was on high ground directing operations, her uniform soaked, her voice hoarse. Team, evacuate civilians to the east. Team, reinforce the levee. Movement suddenly paused. Everyone's movements paused. All eyes turned in the same direction. Maya followed their gaze. Ethan stood a short distance away, the downpour plastering his short hair to his pale cheeks. He was too striking. Even in this chaotic scene, he was beautiful enough to draw every eye. Maya strode over, took off her own raincoat, and wrapped it around him. What are you doing here? Didn't I tell you to stay put? Arthur Miller sent me here. As long as I'm on this base, I'm one of your people. He looked up at her, rainwater dripping from his eyelashes. Disaster relief, I should participate. You can't handle this kind of hardship. Her voice was firm. Go back. But Ethan smiled. Maya Holloway, you've never understood me. With that, he waded directly into the knee-deep floodwaters and began helping to move civilians. Maya tried to stop him, but Owen's voice came from behind her. Maya. She turned to see Owen holding a precarious umbrella. What are you doing here, too? Owen paused, then spotted Ethan in the distance, his eyes instantly darkening. I wanted to do my part, too. Before Maya could stop him, he followed Ethan into the water. The floodwaters rose. Ethan was carrying a crying child to higher ground when Owen suddenly approached. Ethan, you've been coddled your whole life. You should go back. Give me the child. He reached out to take the child, who cried even harder in fright. Smack. Ethan slapped him across the face. Owen, people's lives are at stake right now, and you're still playing your games. Owen clutched his face, his eyes venomous. After Ethan got the child to safety and turned to rescue others, he suddenly felt a strong push from Owen behind him. He plunged into the raging current, but, at the last second, grabbed Owen's wrist, pulling him down too. Ethan. Owen. Maya's voice came from a distance, but the current was too strong. They were swept dozens of feet away in an instant. Captain, those two are about to be washed away. When Maya reached them, she could only see two figures bobbing in the flood. Owen screamed desperately. Maya, save me. Ethan had already swallowed water, his face deathly pale, but he didn't make a sound. Another bolt of lightning struck, illuminating Maya's resolute face. She leaped into the water, heading towards Owen. In the final moment before the flood engulfed him, Ethan saw her choice. He suddenly felt so tired, so incredibly tired. So be it. He released his grip on the piece of driftwood and let the surging waters carry him away. Ethan vaguely felt someone wiping his face with a warm, damp cloth. Captain Holloway, you haven't slept in 2 days. Let me watch over Mr. Miller. No need. It was Maya's voice, unbelievably hoarse. The person tried to insist, but someone else rushed in. Captain Holloway, Dr. Grant has a fever again. He's calling your name. The figure beside his bed hesitated, then finally stood up. Take good care of him. The sound of footsteps faded. When Ethan woke again, it was dusk outside. A young female soldier with a round face was watching over him. Seeing him open his eyes, she sighed in relief. You're finally awake. His gaze unintentionally drifted towards the door. The soldier misunderstood. Don't get the wrong idea. Even though Captain Holloway saved Dr. Grant first, she pulled you out soon after. She's been looking after you these past few days, too. She only just went to Dr. Grant's side a little while ago. If you want to see her, I can go get her. No need. Ethan's voice was dry. I wanted to ask, have all the civilians been evacuated? The soldier blinked. All evacuated. Thanks to your help. She scratched her head, embarrassed. I used to think a rich kid like you couldn't handle hardship, but when things got serious, you really stepped up. You rescued the most people during this flood. The whole unit sees you in a new light now. She hesitated, then asked, her voice tinged with reluctance. But are you going to finish your reform and go home soon? I am leaving, Ethan said softly. Not home, though, to a small town to get married. After sending the soldier away, Ethan forced himself to get up and pack. The suitcase was almost full, but he couldn't find the photograph of him and his mother anywhere. Ethan, are you looking for this? Owen was standing in the doorway, an old, yellowed photograph dangling from his fingers. Get back. Ethan shot up, his vision blurring for a moment. Owen took a couple steps back, pulled a box of matches from his white coat pocket, and struck one. All right, here you go. The flame flared, licking at the edge of the photo. In that instant, Ethan's mind exploded. He lunged forward and slapped Owen hard across the face. Smack! Owen staggered and fell, the photo slipping from his hand. The flames had already reached his mother's face. Ethan dove to grab it, but Owen raised his hand high. The photo burned completely to ash, scattering on the floor. Ethan's eyes were wide with fury. He grabbed Owen's collar and slammed him to the ground. Ethan Miller. Maya's voice exploded from the doorway. The next second, she yanked him off Owen. Ethan stumbled and hit the corner of a table. She looked down at Owen on the floor. He was clutching his face, his voice weak. Maya, don't blame Ethan. It's my fault. I knew he didn't like me, but I was worried about him and secretly came to see him. And that's why he got angry. Apologize. She stared at Ethan, her voice like ice. Ethan stared fixedly at the pile of ashes, motionless. I said apologize. I did nothing wrong. Ethan stared back at her, enunciating each word. He burned my mother's photograph. It's just a photograph. Her jaw tensed, anger simmering in her eyes. You think hitting someone is justified? Just a photograph? He laughed, his eyes burning. Maya Holloway, do you have any idea that was the last thing my mother left me? She paused, taken aback. Before she could speak, Owen tugged at her sleeve. Maya, I didn't. Even if Ethan dislikes me that much, he shouldn't slander me like this. Maya's frown deepened instantly. She issued a direct order. I thought during the flood relief you finally acted like a responsible man, but I see you're still incorrigible. Get outside and stand there. She pointed to the torrential rain pouring down in the courtyard. You can come back in when you're ready to apologize. Owen feigned a protest. Ethan's proud. He won't apologize to me. In this heavy rain, he'll get sick if he stands out there too long. If he won't apologize, he can stand there all day. Ethan suddenly laughed. No matter what, she always chose to believe Owen. He turned and walked out without even grabbing a jacket, straight into the rain. Behind him, he heard Maya and Owen's voices, heard her ask Owen softly if he was hurting, heard her quick footsteps moving away. Rain lashed his face, mixing with tears, impossible to tell if it was cold or hot. The storm raged for an entire day and night. Ethan stood ramrod straight, rainwater streaming from his hair, his clothes long since soaked through. Mr. Ethan. A familiar voice. Mrs. Davison rushed over with an umbrella. Seeing him in that state, tears immediately welled in her eyes. She tremblingly pulled out a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside was a thick stack of cash. Mr. Miller asked me to bring you $, Mr. Ethan. Please, Just go back and apologize to your father. That town in the middle of nowhere is no place for you, especially not to get married and spend the rest of your life there. Ethan shook his head. He'll be happier than anyone if I go. No matter how much I apologize, it won't change his decision. Mrs. Davison's voice trembled, her tears splashing into the muddy water. She had come with his mother from her family home, had watched him grow up. Now, all she could do was uselessly tug at his sleeve. But you're his own flesh and blood. Flesh and blood. Ethan smiled faintly, his voice soft. The day he brought that woman and her son into the house, I lost my father. He's too busy playing dad to another man's son now. Mrs. Davison cried harder. Ethan looked towards a corner of the wall in the downpour. Weeds were battered by the wind, swaying wildly, but they never bent completely. Don't worry, he took the money. I can survive anywhere, and I'll make sure my life is far better than theirs. Back in his room, he'd changed out of his drenched clothes and picked up the suitcase he'd already packed. As he walked out of the base's main gate, the young soldier on duty called out in surprise. Mr. Miller, are you going home? Ethan looked towards the distant gray mountains. There was a home there he'd never been to, a destination arranged by his father, where he was to marry a simple country girl. Yeah, he nodded, his voice light. Going home. The young soldier blushed and scratched his head, both shy and reluctant. Well, when will you come back to visit? Old man Henderson from the mess hall said he saved some smoked bacon for you. Ethan smiled brightly. Thanks, but I won't be back. Never again. With that, he turned and walked into the rain, striding away without a backward glance. A sudden premonition struck Maya Holloway. She looked out the window. The rain was torrential, a dense curtain obscuring the view, making it impossible to see outside, let alone find Ethan. Maya's gaze darkened. She stood up. Owen grabbed her arm. Maya, are you going to look for Ethan? Well, in this downpour, he definitely won't last. He's probably just waiting for you to soften up. He smiled innocently, which made Maya frown. Don't talk about Ethan like that. He's not the type to shirk punishment. From his first day here, he's completed every single one. But today's rain is too heavy. If he stays out there any longer, something bad will happen. She couldn't help but worry about him. Seeing her expression, Owen grew anxious, then stood up as well, hesitantly speaking. But Ethan's always been stubborn. If you go to him now, it'll only upset him more, Maya. Why don't we wait until his time is up? Maya thought about Ethan's increasingly outrageous behavior recently. If she indulged him today, there was no telling what he'd do next. Her face hardened, and she sat back down. Owen's face lit up, and he subtly moved closer. The rain didn't stop until the next morning. Maya immediately went downstairs to find Ethan, a bottle of cold medicine in her hand. But when she reached the designated punishment spot, the familiar figure was nowhere to be seen. Even the young soldier on guard duty said he hadn't seen Mr. Miller. Maya's recently softened expression hardened again. Ethan actually dared to evade punishment. Owen, seeing this, spoke with feigned regret. Honestly, Ethan, he won't even listen to you, Maya. He's probably slacking off somewhere. Let's just ignore him and go get breakfast, okay? Hearing this, the soldier on guard shook his head anxiously in rebuttal. Captain Holloway, that's not what I meant. Mr. Miller didn't skip his punishment. He stood in the rain all day and night yesterday. We all saw him. He scratched his head. When I said I hadn't seen Mr. Miller, I meant he left late last night. Said his reform period was over and he was going home. Then he left, and I haven't seen him since. Thinking about how he'd actually spoken to Ethan alone last night, the young soldier's face flushed again, and he muttered to himself. Actually, Mr. Miller is a pretty good guy. Stood in that terrible rain all night and day without a complaint, finished Captain Holloway's punishment before he left. Captain, don't be angry. Mr. Miller really likes you. Why don't you forgive him? At these words, Maya frowned immediately. He hadn't even told her he was going home. He just left. But perhaps it was for the best. His reform was over. Their relationship was no longer captain and subordinate. Maya's eyes darkened, trying to suppress the turmoil in her heart. Owen, I'm going to look for Ethan. Wait here for me. Wait. Maya, didn't we say we were going for breakfast? Since Ethan's already gone back, we can go after we eat. There's no rush. Owen instinctively grabbed Maya's arm, pleading as he usually did, but this time Maya didn't indulge him. Instead, she pulled her arm free. This is a military base, no inappropriate physical contact. I'll be back after I find Ethan. You can go eat first." With that, ignoring the person still standing there, she strode out of the camp, rushing eagerly towards the Miller family home. Owen watched Maya's retreating figure, stamped his foot in frustration, and then had no choice but to follow. He wouldn't let Ethan have any chance to hook up with Maya. Upon arriving at the Miller residence, the first thing that met her eyes was a 3-story villa. Arthur Miller had made his fortune early and had lived comfortably for years. Even though he hadn't cared much for Ethan, he hadn't been stingy with his son financially. Maya looked at the opulent villa, pressed her lips together, and walked in, Owen trailing behind her. The dining table in the villa was laden with seafood and rich meats. Arthur Miller was raising a glass in celebration with his younger wife. Now that Ethan's gone off to the countryside to marry that Fisher girl, he won't be back to bother you anymore. You can finally relax, dear. Right. The woman, though over, still retained her charm and smiled. It should have been like this long ago. To have raised your ex-wife's son for this long was already generous of me. Arthur Miller nodded repeatedly and clinked glasses with her. Just as they brought their glasses to their lips, bang. The villa's main door was kicked open. Maya strode in, her face grim, her gaze sweeping over them. What did you say? Where did Ethan go? Maya was naturally tall, and now with her voice lowered, she made Arthur Miller jump. Captain Holloway, what's wrong? Didn't that boy Ethan tell you he's gone to the countryside to get married and start a family? Our family even gave him $. Maya was already astounded to hear Ethan had gone to the countryside to marry, especially a mere Fisher girl. Her heart tightened. How could a pampered young man like Ethan possibly adapt to rural life? Even on the base, he had struggled more than others. The thought of that fair-skinned, refined young man marrying and starting a family in such a place made Maya's heart churn with irritation. She suppressed her emotions and continued to ask, "What's the exact address?" At this moment, Owen arrived, looking flustered. He had been delighted when he first heard Ethan was marrying a country girl, but then he saw how anxious Maya looked and hurried over. "Maya, why are you asking about this? Ethan's already married. He doesn't need to come back to the base for reform. You're not responsible for him anymore." As he spoke, he winked at Arthur Miller. The older man, who hadn't understood at first, finally grasped his son's meaning and put on a smile. "Yes, my unfilial son has troubled Captain Holloway for so long. Since you're here, why don't you stay for a meal before you go? Owen is back, too. It's perfect." Turning his head, Owen looked expectant, but Maya was completely unmoved, her expression still icy. "Mr. Miller, I'll ask again, where exactly did Ethan go? You previously asked me to reform him properly, and I believe I completed that task. Now that his reform is over, my relationship with him is no longer that of captain and soldier." She paused, then spoke in a low voice. "Since he's been sent to the countryside, I'll go find him and bring him back. A person like him. How could he possibly endure a place like that?" The concern in Maya's eyes made Owen burn with jealousy. Why did Ethan deserve her care? Even Arthur Miller looked troubled. "Captain Holloway, I know you're responsible, but this was an order from above. We business people must integrate with the countryside for reform. If you bring Ethan back now, Owen will be the one who has to go." "Yes, Maya. Ethan did this for my sake, too. Someone from our family has to go to the countryside. Are you saying if you bring Ethan back, you'll send me away?" Owen opportunely lowered his eyes, looking pitiful. Maya hadn't known about this detail before. Now she was being forced to choose between the two of them. She clenched her fists and after a long moment turned and left the Miller house. "I'll find someone. There must be a way to bring Ethan back." Owen, unable to stop her, stomped his foot in frustration. Arthur Miller watched this unfold. He'd been around the block a few times. How could he not sense something unusual in Maya Holloway's behavior? "Owen, tell me, your Captain Holloway doesn't fancy Ethan, does she?" Frankly, Maya was a captain at such a young age. Her future prospects were surely bright. If she liked Ethan, it might not be a bad thing. But Owen scowled at the question. "Dad, what are you talking about? How could Maya possibly like Ethan? I'm the one who's going to be with Maya." His anger made Arthur chuckle and admit his mistake. Yes, our Owen is the one Captain Holloway likes. So what are you waiting for? Hurry up and go after her. Captain Holloway probably hasn't eaten yet. Take some food with you." He coaxed Owen while Ethan's stepmother thoughtfully packed a lunchbox with several good dishes and handed it over. "Here, Owen, If you can win over Captain Holloway, our family won't have to worry for the rest of our lives. Maya Holloway is bound to be even more successful than your father. Owen's earlier frustration vanished. He smiled, took the lunchbox, and hurried after Maya. Maya had returned to the base. In her room, she racked her brains, trying to figure out who to contact to resolve this. A few knocks on the door. She looked up, instinctively thinking Ethan had returned. He usually came around this time, eagerly bringing her food. But when she opened the door and saw Owen's face, a wave of disappointment washed over her. Maya, I brought you some food. My father asked me to bring it. Said you must be too busy to eat. Owen smiled faintly, closed the door, and walked to the table, arranging the dishes. This was food from the Miller house, much better than the base cafeteria fare, but Maya had no appetite. You eat it. I'm not hungry right now. She didn't even glance at it, continuing to scan the numbers in her contact list. The people in it were at least at the colonel level. Surely someone could help. Owen knew she was still worrying about Ethan. He bit his lip, frowning in displeasure. Maya, am I not as good as Ethan in some way? Ethan was the standard rich kid, tall, lean, and unforgettable at first glance, but Owen wasn't bad either. He had a more delicate build and an innocent face. Whenever he frowned, he looked like he was about to cry, making him hard to refuse. Normally, Maya would have offered some comforting words, but now her mind was entirely consumed by Ethan. A man like him actually sent to the countryside. She gave a perfunctory reply, her hands never ceasing their activity. Why would you say that? You and Ethan both have your own strengths. Owen took a few steps closer, pressing his hand on Maya's. If that's the case, then why are you always thinking about Ethan? Maya, do you like him? The question jolted Maya to her senses. Yes, what was she doing? Wasn't it a good thing that Ethan wouldn't be harassing her anymore? Why was she so worried now? Her hands paused for a few seconds. Then she brushed Owen's hand away. He was my soldier for a time, so naturally I must protect him. Besides, Ethan didn't go to the countryside willingly. She found a colonel's contact information, her eyes lighting up. She remembered this man owed her a favor. Perhaps he could help. She took the contact list to the telegraph machine. Just as she was about to compose a message, Owen suddenly wrapped his arms around her waist. But if Ethan comes back, I'll have to go to the countryside. Would you really let me marry some poor country girl, Maya? His voice was tearful, his firm body pressed tightly against Maya's, making her hesitate for a moment before her resolve hardened. I'll find a way so neither of you has to go to the countryside, Owen. Don't worry, no one will have to go. She prepared to send a telegram, but Owen suddenly leaned down and kissed her lips. In this era, any intimate contact between a man and a woman meant taking responsibility. If word got out and reputations were damaged, the consequences would be severe. Maya hadn't reacted at all before Owen pushed her back a few steps, kissing her more passionately. It was only when his hand touched her body that Maya snapped back to her senses and shoved him away. Owen, what are you doing? Maya, I like you. I want to be with you. I'm afraid if Ethan comes back, you'll be drawn to him. Maya, please don't bother with him, okay? Owen sat on the floor, his eyes dark and brooding. Maya's face was ashen. I've never liked you, Owen. Don't ever do this again. Owen froze, the feigned tears ceasing. He looked up in disbelief. Maya, you don't like me? How could you not like me? You've always treated me so specially. Owen, as the unit's medic, had long been infatuated with Maya. Otherwise, he wouldn't have searched for her for 3 days and nights during the avalanche, risking everything to save her. Afterwards, Maya's attitude towards him had softened. He thought she liked him too. But now Maya was saying she'd never liked him. Meeting Owen's gaze, Maya's face remained stern. Everything I did for you was out of gratitude for saving my life, nothing more. There were no romantic feelings involved. I never thought you'd misunderstand. Owen, I don't like you. Owen was incredulous, his eyes reddening. You don't like me? You were always so good to me. You even gave me the most precious dose of anti-venom, and now you tell me you don't like me? Then who do you like? Ethan Miller. Maya didn't answer. Now that it's clear, don't do this kind of thing again. She started to use the telegraph machine again to send a message to the colonel, but Owen's long-held confidence had been shattered. He'd always believed Maya's kindness meant she truly liked him. It turned out it was only gratitude, no affection at all. He then thought of Maya's various interactions with Ethan, and his worry intensified. If Ethan came back, he would immediately steal Maya away. He slammed down the telegraph machine switch and, amidst Maya's simmering anger, embraced her again. Maya, since you say you don't like me, then just let me live out this one dream, okay? He pleaded, pulling her onto his lap, starting to unbutton her neat uniform. As he reached the last button, Maya stopped his hand. Owen, don't. More words of rejection. He was practically throwing himself at her, and she still had no desire for him. Owen suddenly broke down. Maya, don't you feel anything for me at all? I only feel gratitude towards you, Maya replied. If that's the case, then can't you just think of this as repaying that gratitude, Maya? I don't believe you feel nothing for me. Owen was determined to get an answer. He tore open her uniform, tried to arouse her, but from beginning to end, Maya said nothing, merely enduring it silently. Even at the final moment of pleasure with the woman in his arms, Maya only sighed. When Owen woke up, he found himself in Maya's bed. Before he could feel happy, he saw the woman who had just slept with him looking overjoyed, a telegram in her hand. This is great. There's a way for Ethan to come back. He froze. The joy in his eyes slowly faded, replaced by resentment. Ethan was gone, yet he could still steal Maya away. He deliberately fell out of bed. Ouch, that hurts. Sure enough, the next second, Maya rushed over and helped him up. Owen, are you okay? Seeing the anxiety in her eyes, Owen secretly smirked but feigned embarrassment. I'm fine, Maya. Did I just hear you say Ethan can come back? At this, Maya couldn't hide her delight. She held out the telegram. That's right. I contacted Colonel Peterson. He said he has a way to bring Ethan back. And of course, you won't have to go to the countryside either. You can both continue to live here. Owen also smiled upon hearing this. Is that so? That's wonderful. Then Ethan will know we're together as soon as he gets back. Maya's smile slowly stiffened. She turned to him. What did you say, Owen? I said when Ethan gets back, he'll know right away that we're together. Maya, don't be ridiculous. When did we get together? I told you I don't have feelings for you. Maya's face hardened. She was about to leave when he grabbed the corner of her clothes. But Maya, we've already done that. Shouldn't you be responsible for me? There were still marks on her body, clear evidence to anyone that they had just slept together. Owen continued. Does Maya really not have feelings for me? If not, why would you agree to sleep with me last night? You let me kiss you for so long. Have you forgotten? Maya, the more he spoke, the graver her expression became. Enough. You said to consider it repaying a debt. That's why I did it. I don't have feelings for you, Owen. Please have some self-respect. I'm going to find Ethan now. She dressed and was about to leave. Owen was stunned. He couldn't understand why. Even though he'd had her body, Maya's heart was still set on Ethan. He glared viciously at her retreating back and suddenly shouted, Maya Holloway, do you like Ethan Miller? Are you going after him because you can't bear for him to marry some stinking country girl? Maya stopped in her tracks. Did she like Ethan Miller? He was clearly a pampered rich kid. He'd scrape his feet on his first day at the base and constantly harass her. But why, upon learning he was going to marry someone else, did she feel so anxious? Maya remembered Ethan's bright eyes, the way he smiled so often, how every time he pretended to embrace her, she had wanted to hold on to that warm body. But in a professional setting, she was a captain. How could she indulge in personal feelings? She stood there for several seconds, finally sorting out her emotions. Yes, I like Ethan Miller. I'm going to bring him back. Owen, don't ever bring this up again. She didn't look back, walking straight out. Owen grew desperate. He didn't care about his half-dressed state and rushed to the window. Maya, if you dare go find him today, I'll jump. Maya didn't turn back. Owen gritted his teeth and jumped. It was the second floor, not high, but Maya heard something fall. Her pupils contracted violently in disbelief. She turned back to see Owen gone from the room, the window open. She rushed in. Owen had really jumped. Looking at the blood on the ground, Owen managed a weak smile. Maya, you came back. Her heart clenched. Forgetting her plan to find Ethan, she immediately called for a doctor and sent Owen to the hospital. She stayed by his bedside for a day before Owen woke up. The doctor said that luckily it was only the second floor. There was no major harm, just a broken leg that would heal in a few months with rest. Despite this, Maya blamed herself immensely. She hadn't expected Owen to actually jump. If she had known, she would have spoken to him properly before going to find Ethan. Maya, I'm sorry I used this method to keep you here. I really like you, Maya. Please consider me, okay? As soon as he opened his eyes and saw Maya by his side, Owen pleaded. For some reason, perhaps due to a mix of emotions, Maya didn't immediately refuse him this time. Get some rest. I'll go get you some food. She tucked him in and headed to the hospital cafeteria. On the way, she was torn. Owen was a good man, and Ethan always made things difficult for him. If she really brought Ethan back, Owen would surely have a hard time. Thinking about today's events, she hesitated. Maya Holloway stared intently at Owen. She had always believed that although he was occasionally mischievous, it was understandable, and he was, after all, the man who had saved her life, so she had always indulged him on the base. But she hadn't expected that her indulgence would lead Owen to treat Ethan this way, even forcing him to go to the countryside. Her heart turned cold, her face devoid of any expression. Owen, that day, you were the one who smashed the medicine bottle. Why did you frame Ethan? Owen's face changed. Before he could explain, Maya continued. Why did you push Ethan into the river? Why did you burn his mother's photograph? Owen, why did you do these things? With each question, Maya stepped closer, her presence looming over Owen. He hadn't expected Maya to know everything. Seeing the woman's frosty expression, Owen couldn't help but tremble. But then, as if remembering something, his eyes reddened. I didn't mean to do it. I dislike you too much, Maya. When I saved you before, it was because I like you. I loved you. But Ethan has no tact at all, and he kept trying to compete with me for you. I was just so worried. What if you liked him? What if you didn't want me anymore? Maya, didn't you just promise to consider me? As he spoke, tears streamed down his face. Owen was adept at using his perceived vulnerability, countless times feigning weakness to make women pity him. But Maya had seen his true colors now. Looking at his tears, she only felt disgust. This was how he had repeatedly hurt Ethan. Maya remained unmoved, her voice cold. When you were poisoned, I already saved you once. We're even. I don't owe you anything. But I will not forgive you for treating Ethan that way. The person I like is not you. You don't need to waste your efforts anymore. She looked at the panicking man, continuing mercilessly. I will find Ethan. Apologize to him, and then be with him, not with a malicious person like you. With that, ignoring him lying in bed, she turned to leave. Owen, desperate, got out of bed and grabbed her hand. No, Maya. Maya was surprised, her gaze shifting down to Owen's legs. Even his injury was faked. In an instant, fury filled her mind. She violently shook off Owen's hand, her eyes filled with fierce disgust. Owen, you truly sicken me. To think you'd use such methods to make me pity you, to force me to stay. Since your leg is fine, then this is where we end things. I don't want to see you again. Treated this way by the woman he had loved deeply for years, Owen's heart felt like it was shattering. But he also hated Ethan. He had targeted him for so many years, and Ethan still came to steal his person. He stubbornly hugged Maya from behind. Maya, don't be like this. I know I was wrong. I just love you too much. I'll get along with Ethan from now on. I'll never frame him again. Please, don't hate me. Owen wept and apologized, hoping the woman before him would forgive him, would dote on him like before. But when Maya heard Ethan's name from his lips, her anger flared even hotter. Unable to bear it any longer, she shoved the man behind her away. It's all your fault, and you still have the nerve to mention Ethan. If it weren't for you, why would he have left? Why would he have agreed to go to the countryside? You forced him out. This is all your fault. The pain of knowing the truth, the anger of being deceived, and the departure of her beloved made Maya unable to hold back. Owen's face turned deathly pale. He pleaded with the woman before him, begging her not to be so heartless, but she remained unmoved. He looked at Maya in despair, never expecting her to say such cruel words. Ethan is so important to you? Then what am I? You clearly like me too. You treated me completely differently from others. You had feelings for me too, didn't you? He screamed hoarsely. But Maya's eyes remained icy. I've said it many times. Towards you, I only feel gratitude. He knew it. She liked him. If she didn't like him, why did she keep accepting his kindness? Owen's eyes filled with tears, finally seeing this person's true face. He jerked his head up, his eyes full of mockery and unwillingness. Maya Holloway, do you really think it was me who forced Ethan away? It was you who never rejected me, who always tacitly treated me well. You were the one who hurt Ethan. Everyone on base knew I was special to you. Don't you think Ethan knew? He was forced away by you. Now you blame everything on me? Maya Holloway, you are truly heartless. Owen roared, his eyes filled with despair. Maya remained unmoved, her voice terrifyingly cold. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have treated Ethan that way. With that, ignoring the man who had collapsed on the floor, she turned and left the hospital room. The decision. On her way, she went directly to Colonel Peterson's office. Maya, you need to think this through. Although I can help you this time, the Miller family has significant assets. If this gets investigated later, it'll be easy to trace. One wrong move and your rank is gone. You've worked so hard to get to captain, promotion isn't far off. Consider carefully. Sending him to the countryside was a directive from higher up. Wealthy families had to comply. The Millers had already delayed for years. If she intervened now, she could lose her position. But the thought of Ethan leaving her in that torrential storm sent stabs of pain through her heart. She had lost him once. She couldn't lose him a second time. Whatever the cost, she had to bring him back. Maya nodded solemnly. Colonel Peterson produced a document. All right. If you've decided, sign your name. If anything happens in the future, you'll bear the responsibility alone. This is as much as I can help you. She signed her name without hesitation, then smiled faintly. Don't worry, Colonel. Whatever happens in the future, I'll take full responsibility. As long as I can bring him back. The Colonel nodded, no longer trying to stop her, and put the paper away. Seeing her eagerness, he couldn't help but ask, First time I've seen you handle personal matters like this, Maya. Who is this person? It's someone I like very much. A few days later, Colonel Peterson sent word that everything was arranged. She could go to the countryside to find him. Maya couldn't wait another moment. She took all her accumulated leave and immediately rushed to the countryside. She wanted to see Ethan immediately. Havenwood. Due to the recent rain, the road to Havenwood was a muddy mess. Ethan first took a bus to the county seat, then transferred to an ox cart that would take him into the small lakeside town. Several people shared the cart. None had ever seen a man as handsome and clean-cut as Ethan. His skin was fair, his bearing refined. The rough-hewn men for miles around couldn't compare to a single one of his little fingers. The women stared unabashedly, swallowing hard, stealing glances yet not daring to look for too long. Ethan was prone to motion sickness, and the ox cart jolted the whole journey, left him drained, so he naturally didn't notice the stares. It wasn't until they reached the town and it was time to get off that the cart driver dared to approach him. Friend, which family are you from? You look new around here. If you've taken the wrong way, you'll have to wait for tomorrow's cart back. Ethan finally realized they had arrived. He shook his head to clear it, glanced at the town sign, and nodded politely at the driver. This is the place, thank you. How much do I owe you? Ethan reached into his pocket for money, but the driver waved his hands repeatedly. No, this one's on the house, friend. Which family did you say you were from? The driver's face flushed as he spoke. Ethan didn't mind. He pressed some money into the driver's hand anyway, then pondered. It should be the Vance family. I've never been here before. Could you point me in the right direction? I can get there myself. He'd come under duress and hadn't expected any grand welcome. All he knew was that his future wife's last name was Vance. As for where she lived, he had no idea. Hearing this, the driver exclaimed in surprise. You're from the Vance family? Since when did Sarah Vance have such a good-looking relative? Look here comes Vance Sarah now. They must be here to pick you up. The driver pointed, and Ethan saw a woman trudging through the mud, her steps heavy. She had a serious expression, but when she met Ethan's gaze, she quickened her pace. You must be Mr. Miller. I'm Sarah Vance here. Aware of the driver, Sarah Vance instinctively paused, not finishing her sentence. Ethan, however, was indifferent. He had accepted his fate. It was just marrying a simple country girl. It wouldn't stop his determination to build a better future. He smiled faintly and completed her sentence. You're my wife. Let's go. Sarah faltered, surprised that Ethan seemed unbothered by his situation, even though he was being forced to marry her. But she was always a bit awkward with words and didn't know how to explain, so she just nodded silently, which earned a whistle of admiration from the driver. Friend, you're Sarah Vance's husband? You got him, mate. Ethan didn't understand what he meant, but the woman's face was already beet red. She cleared her throat. The road is muddy. I can carry you home on my back. With that, she bent down. The woman's back looked strong, But Ethan was no longer a pampered rich kid. He shook his head and stepped into the mud himself. No need for that. I can walk with you. Sarah Vance quickly led the way. They walked for about minutes and finally reached a house with a tiled roof. In the countryside, such a house was quite decent, but Sarah still felt embarrassed. In a village, this is the best kind of house we can build right now. Your father said you usually live in a fine house. I'll work hard to build you a house you like in the future. After speaking, she opened her mouth again. I know you were forced to marry me. If you're unwilling, I can send you back to the city, Mr. Miller. There's nothing here. You definitely won't be used to it. Whether it was people from the base or the villagers here, seeing Ethan's delicate skin and wealthy appearance, they instinctively assumed he was a city person who couldn't adapt to rural life. Ethan didn't mind these looks. He'd heard far worse gossip. These were just words. Time would prove them wrong. He declined Sarah's offer to send him back and, turning expertly, fetched water and started a fire to heat it, showing no signs of being unable to handle hardship. However, he didn't last long before he started to sway. Before coming to Havenwood, he had stood in the rain at the base for an entire day and night, then traveled for another full day to get here. By now, both his stamina and his immune system were at their limits. Ethan's face was flushed and he was panting. Before he could even wash his face, he collapsed. When he woke up again, he was lying in bed, a cool, damp towel on his forehead. You're finally awake. The doctor saw you. You have a high fever. You need to rest well. Sarah Vance sat by the bed, her face etched with worry. Ethan tried to sit up. The first thing he noticed was that his clothes had been changed. He instinctively looked at the woman opposite him, who, understanding his unspoken question, blushed crimson. It wasn't me. I asked old Mr. Henderson from next door. The doctor said you needed to be sponged down. I didn't touch you. She looked so anxious, as if she wished she had 3 mouths to explain herself. Seeing this woman's simple honesty, Ethan managed a weak smile. You're my wife now. It wouldn't have mattered if you had. Thank you for taking care of me. Sarah Vance remained very reserved, as if she didn't even dare to get close. It's nothing. I should take care of you. There's nothing here. I've put you through a lot. The woman's earnest smile made Ethan smile too. He lay in bed for several days before fully recovering. Sarah had taken care of him throughout, not only fetching water, heating it, and wiping his sweat, but also brewing medicine regularly. Even a doctor had visited several times. Most importantly, during this time, Sarah hadn't laid a finger on him. Although Ethan had accepted his fate and would have endured it if Sarah had insisted on sharing a bed, she hadn't mentioned it once. This allowed his heart to slowly relax, settling in. Once he was better, he couldn't stay in bed any longer. Though he looked like a rich kid, several years on the base had ingrained certain habits. Rural life mainly revolved around farming. Ethan had never done it, but he planned to adapt to local customs. He found some coarse work clothes and put on a straw hat to shield himself from the sun. Sarah, are you going to the lake to fish? Let me go with you. Sarah Vance quickly shook her head. You just stay home. I can manage on my own. Don't you lift a finger. Ethan smiled at her. Since we're married now, we should naturally work together. If I get tired, I'll come back and rest on my own. Sarah couldn't argue with him, so after many instructions and warnings, she took Ethan to the lake. The weather was hot, and it didn't take long to feel dizzy from the sun. However, Ethan had endured hardship for years at the base. This small matter wouldn't defeat him. He fished by the lake for a while, soon sweating profusely. The rough clothes couldn't hide his handsome, clean features. Other villagers working nearby teased Sarah. When did you get married? He's so handsome. You should have had a proper celebration. Exactly. If I had such a handsome husband, I wouldn't let him work with me. It's too demeaning, Sarah. Why aren't you protecting your young husband better? After a few such comments, Sarah's face was bright red. Ethan couldn't stand hearing his own wife spoken like that. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. I care about her. Of course I have to come and work with her. Weddings are troublesome and a waste of money. Not having one is perfect. We can save the money for a bigger house. The villagers nodded in agreement, and even some of the older women cast approving glances at Ethan. After a full day's work, Ethan felt like he was about to die from exhaustion. Even at the base, he'd never trained for an entire day straight. He returned home, took off his shoes and, as expected, found several blisters on his feet. He sighed. Sarah had already drawn water and brought it over for him to soak his feet. You worked hard. This work is tiring. You should just stay home. I usually do it all myself. I'm used to it. Ethan considered that his inexperience would only slow her down. It might be better to cook for her at home. He nodded in agreement. A wave of joy washed over the woman's face. She had heard from the authorities that a young master from the city would be coming to their village as part of an assistance program. 3 years passed with no news, and she thought it had fallen through. Then, a short while ago, she suddenly received a letter. The young master was coming. Sarah knew that city-bred young masters never dirted their hands and would surely find the countryside lacking. But she hadn't expected Ethan not only to not mind, but also to actively offer help. Watching the man in the distance bend over to soak his feet, revealing a sliver of fair ankle and neck, Sarah had never seen anyone so handsome. From the first glance, she couldn't look away. She thought for a moment, then took out a small pouch. This is for you. It's all the money the family has. You can manage it from now on. Country folk live by selling their crops. Some might save for half a lifetime and still not have as much as Ethan spent in a year. Sarah knew her meager savings wouldn't amount to much in his eyes. She explained quietly, "Even though I'm just a simple fisherwoman, I'll work harder in the future and earn more." A warmth spread through Ethan. In this era, it was an unspoken rule that both men and women had to work, but he hadn't expected her to show such concern for him. So, even though he had $1 on him, he hadn't considered taking it out easily, fearing this simple woman might squander it. Now, it seems Sarah had a good character. Thinking about her care over the past period, Ethan silently accepted the pouch. "All right, I understand. But don't work yourself too hard either. Starting tomorrow, I'll cook for you at home." Sarah nodded and went to heat more water. Though Ethan could endure hardship, he couldn't stand being dirty all day. His only request to Sarah was that he had to bathe every day. So this country woman had to make several trips to fetch water every evening after returning home. Other villagers weren't so particular. When they saw her fetching water daily, they knew it was because her man liked to be clean. Ethan closed the door to his room. The village had no communal bathhouses, so he had to use a wooden tub. He soaked in it, sighing in comfort. Life in the countryside wasn't as unbearable as others made it out to be. After soaking for a while, he dried off, changed his clothes, and came out. Sarah was just outside. The moment she saw him in loose pajamas, she averted her gaze. Ethan's fair legs and arms looked even more porcelain-like in the moonlight. Just looking at him felt like sacrilege to her. Country people were simple. Even though Ethan had told them countless times they were married, Sarah still didn't dare touch him. For the following period, Sarah sold fish outside, and Ethan cooked at home. He had never cooked before, but Sarah wasn't picky. No matter what he made, she would wolf it down in a few bites, praising it profusely, always finishing every last scrap. Once, he accidentally burned the rice. Even Ethan himself couldn't bring himself to eat it and was about to make a new pot. But Sarah didn't mind at all, eating even the burnt parts, which astonished him. "Sarah, don't eat that. It's all burnt. I'll make you a fresh batch." Sarah shook her head, smiling simply. "My love made it for me. Anything you make is delicious." It was the first time she had called him my love. After saying it, not only was Ethan stunned, but Sarah also seemed surprised by her own words. She looked flustered. "I didn't mean to. I won't say it next time, Ethan. Don't overthink it. I just heard others say it, and it slipped out." Outside, everyone called him Sarah Vance's love, thinking Sarah had incredible luck to marry someone so handsome and capable. Only the two of them knew it wasn't his choice, so Sarah had never called him that, maintaining a respectful distance. Now, the slip of the tongue made the usually shy Sarah extremely anxious, as if terrified of being disliked. Ethan smiled. For some reason, he found it rather sweet. "From the first day I came here, I've been your love. You can call me that whenever you want. It's okay." This was the respect and affection he had never received from Maya Holloway. Sarah, seeing he truly didn't mind, called out again. "My love, my love. I hear you. I'll go wash the dishes." Sarah's face beamed with joy. She carried the bowls to the wash basin, her whole body seeming to brim with inexhaustible energy. Ethan watched her retreating figure, thinking about the $100,000 he had brought with him. He could get them a much better life. Although Ethan could endure hardship and wasn't afraid of it, he wouldn't let himself remain in the countryside indefinitely. He would prove to others that even if he went to the countryside, he could live well. After that, he began to research ways to make money. The main reason rural people couldn't escape poverty was their fixed mindset, always believing that only tilling the land could provide enough food. Over the years, although Ethan's relationship with Arthur Miller was poor, his father was a businessman, and Ethan knew a thing or two about making money. However, he hadn't figured out how to implement his ideas when an unexpected visitor arrived in the village. Maya's arrival. A small car bumped along the road, attracting most people's attention. A car. That must cost a fortune. Which rich person has come to our village? You only see these things in the county town or the city, right? I never thought we'd see one in our village. If I had a car, I'd be so impressive, huh? The villagers discussed, their faces full of envy. The car stopped at the village entrance, and a woman in a military uniform stepped out. The onlookers were even more astonished. They hadn't seen someone in uniform in half a lifetime. She clearly looked very capable. The village chief hurried over. Hey, who are you looking for here? The road's bad. If there's anything I can help you with, I'll do it. Villagers had a natural affinity for people in uniform. Their ancestors had experienced war, and they held military personnel in high regard. Maya Holloway surveyed the surroundings, frowning instinctively, not understanding how Arthur Miller could have decided to send Ethan here. The base at its worst still had running water and electricity, but in the village, they had to draw water from wells, and electricity required connecting lines, and no one was willing to waste money on electricity bills. She controlled her impatience and tilted her head slightly. Do you know Ethan Miller? The village chief paused, then smiled. Oh, you're looking for the Vance family's young man. They're by the lake now. I'll take you there. Maya's frown deepened. Ethan was by the lake. He was so delicate. How could he bear this weather to work by the lake? Her heart ached with pity as she followed the village chief. The country roads were rough, and it was even muddier near the fields. Everyone wore rain boots. Maya didn't spare a thought for her military boots, stepping through mud puddle after mud puddle until she finally saw Ethan. He had his sleeves rolled up, revealing slender arms. Perhaps it was too hot. He was wiping sweat with the back of his hand, his fair skin dazzling in the sun. As for his clothes, when had Ethan ever worn such cheap material? Maya's heart was a mix of emotions. The village chief enthusiastically introduced, "This is Sarah Vance's husband. He came to our village alone a while back. No idea how Sarah Vance managed to marry him. Now he's the famous village heartthrob. Looks like a young master, but he's not lazy when it comes to cooking and working, and he's gentle too. Now the whole village envies Sarah Vance." The village chief wasn't lying. Many people felt Sarah Vance had hit the jackpot for several lifetimes. Even though this man didn't do much heavy labor, he was pleasant to have around, and Ethan was never lazy. Maya saw from a distance as Ethan wiped his sweat. The woman beside him quickly handed him a towel, her face full of concern. Ethan didn't refuse, bowing his head to let the woman with tan skin wipe his sweat, even offering a grateful smile. A pang shot through her heart. In the past, Ethan had only shown such expressions to her. She couldn't bear it any longer and strode forward. Ethan Miller. The man paused, hearing the familiar voice, and turned in disbelief. It was Maya Holloway. Why was she here? Before he could react, he heard Maya say, "Ethan Miller, you can go back. I've already spoken to Colonel Peterson. Your Miller family doesn't have to go to the countryside anymore." Her gaze swept over Sarah Vance. The woman who called herself Ethan's wife looked dazed and a bit slow. How could someone like her make Ethan happy? He must have endured so much in the countryside. Once they returned, she would propose to him. Maya clenched her fists. She had thought it through. She couldn't bear Ethan marrying another woman, especially a country girl. Ethan wiped his hands, climbed out of the muddy field, and walked over to her. "Captain Holloway, you should go back. I'm her husband now. This was my own decision. This was clearly Arthur Miller forcing you. How could he send you to the countryside? Come back with me now. I've arranged everything. You don't have to suffer here anymore." The man she loved was right in front of her, yet he called himself someone else's husband. Maya felt a stab in her heart. Ethan's face was expressionless. From the moment he decided to come to Havenwood for this assignment, Maya no longer had any sway over his emotions. He said flatly, "It was voluntary, and I'm not suffering here. Sarah is very good to me. You should go back. Don't come looking for me." The more nonchalant he was, the angrier Maya became. Ethan actually said he was doing well. Back at the base, he had insisted on daily showers, wouldn't even cut his hair short. Here, there was nothing. How could he possibly be doing well? I told you, I've taken care of everything. Even if you're angry with me, you can be angry when we get back. In her desperation, she grabbed Ethan's hand, intending to pull him away. Sarah rushed up and pushed her away. What do you think you're doing? Just because you're a captain, you think you can bully people? She was an honest person. If Ethan had truly decided to go back with Maya, she wouldn't have said anything. But Ethan clearly didn't want to, and this woman was trying to force him. Sarah stood protectively in front of Ethan, warily eyeing the newcomer. A warmth spread through Ethan. He hadn't expected Sarah to rush over and defend him. It made him feel even more certain about his choice. He smiled at Maya. See? She's my wife now. Captain Holloway, we have no relationship anymore. Maya's face darkened so much it looked like it might drip water. After a long moment, she softened her voice. Ethan, I know you're angry. As long as you come back with me, stop staying in the countryside, I can propose to you. I was wrong before. I've investigated thoroughly. Owen did many wrong things. I was the one who always wrongly accused you. You're angry about that, aren't you? She considered herself above reproach, had never admitted to being wrong for anyone. Now, to actually say she was wrong. Ethan found it both novel and laughable. After he left, she finally bothered to investigate those things, but it was already too late. He curled his lip. Maya Holloway, it's too late. Those few words nearly made Maya stumble. For the Miller family's matter, she had gone to great lengths to get this chance, then traveled all this way, only for Ethan to say it was too late. She felt like her heart had been stabbed. She couldn't understand why it was too late. Ethan, it's not too late. I've already spoken to Owen. I repaid my life debt to him. I won't have any contact with him anymore. I won't make you sad again. Come back to me, please, she pleaded. But Ethan remained unmoved. He looked directly into her eyes. No, I'm very happy here. Sarah is very good to me. I'm her husband now. Captain Holloway, please stop bothering us. His firm rejection made her usually calm composure shatter. Her gaze swept sharply over Sarah Vance, covered in dirt, a simple country fisherwoman, not even pretty. What did she have that was better than her? She gritted her teeth, her voice becoming urgent. You haven't had a wedding ceremony. You haven't even registered your marriage. As long as you want to leave, leave. The rest is up to me. Ethan, you need to think clearly. If you really stay with her, you'll be in the countryside for the rest of your life. At these words, Sarah Vance immediately panicked. Maya Holloway was right. They hadn't done anything formal. Ethan had just moved into her house somewhat haphazardly. Legally, they had nothing. Moreover, this captain was certainly more capable than she was and could provide Ethan with the kind of fine house he was used to. Before Ethan could hesitate, Sarah began to doubt. The man sighed and took her hand. Sarah and I may not have had a wedding or registered our marriage, but we have consummated our relationship. She's my wife. Instantly, Maya looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. She stared at Ethan in disbelief, at their joined hands, her mind buzzing. How could you? How could you have been intimate with her? She gritted out the words. The thought of Ethan's firm chest, his long, lean legs, features he'd once flaunted to tempt her, now being enjoyed by this simple country girl, made her feel like she couldn't breathe. Someone as proud as Ethan, how could he allow a country woman to touch him? She tried to convince herself it was a lie, something Ethan said to deceive her, but the man's face was calm, even tinged with a slight smile. If Captain Holloway doesn't believe it, you're welcome to come by tonight and see for yourself. Sarah and I have a very harmonious marital life. She couldn't bear to hear any more and turned on her heel, storming off. Sarah's palm was sweating. She timidly held Ethan's hand, wondering how his hand could be so warm. This was their first real skin-to-skin contact. Sarah shyly lowered her head. Only when Maya's figure was completely out of sight did Ethan gently withdraw his hand from hers. Sarah felt a flicker of disappointment. Don't overthink it. Let's get back to work. We'll go home early tonight. She nodded, not dwelling on it. That evening, when it was time for them to sleep in separate beds as usual, Ethan stopped her. Puzzled, where are you going? I'm going to sleep. Sarah held her pillow, about to go to the other bed. This in turn made Ethan hesitate. Had Sarah genuinely not understood his implication? His attempts to seduce Maya had failed so many times. Was he going to fail with his actual wife too? Ineffective with a countrywoman too? A blush crept up his face. He grabbed Sarah's arm. We sleep together tonight. I told her we've consummated our marriage. We can't make it look like a lie, can we? A few seconds later, Sarah's face flushed a deep red. No matter how slow she was, she understood Ethan's meaning now. She stammered, her eyes darting around. She wouldn't dare actually come and eavesdrop. You don't have to sacrifice yourself, Ethan. Ethan chuckled. Sarah was good in every way, but she was too cautious and humble, always feeling she wasn't good enough for him. In reality, what did good enough even mean? He said nothing, simply tugged at her sash and pulled her close. As clothes were shed piece by piece, revealing large expanses of fair skin, Ethan could no longer hold back. He grasped her slender waist and began to move with a fierce rhythm. In an instant, sweet moans escaped, further inflaming desire. What no one expected was that outside their house, Maya Holloway stood by the wall, hearing the faint suggestive sounds from within. Her fists were clenched so tightly her nails nearly dug into her flesh. She hadn't expected Ethan to be telling the truth. They had actually been intimate. The thought of him making such sounds with another woman made Maya feel as if a piece of her heart had been gouged out, the pain unbearable. Yet, she couldn't move, just stood there, letting those sounds become the sharpest blades stabbing at her heart. It wasn't until the moon grew hazy and the sun began to rise that the sound from the room finally ceased. Maya still maintained that posture. She had stood there all night, but she had also made up her mind. Even so, she still wanted Ethan to go back with her. As long as he was willing, she would pay any price. She didn't believe that in just a few short months Ethan would stop loving her. He must be trying to get back at her. Maya's desperation. The next day, Maya Holloway didn't leave. Instead, she rented a spare room from a villager and settled in. Ethan and Sarah, however, slept until noon. A woman newly intimate with her husband was even more devoted. You don't have to, by the way, is your leg okay? Ethan blushed, feeling a bit awkward about last night, but Sarah still shook her head. I'm fine. Last night, I enjoyed it very much. Faced with such obvious affection, Ethan could only nod. If someone had told him in the past that he would fall for a simple country fisherwoman, Ethan definitely wouldn't have believed it. He was a young master, tall and handsome, with countless people vying for his attention. How could he possibly fall for a country girl? But during this time with Sarah, he had genuinely been moved. Even sleeping together last night had been his own choice. He sat on the edge of the bed, thinking for a while, feeling rather shy. He decided to go for a walk, pick some vegetables, but just as he stepped out, he saw Maya standing nearby. She looked like she hadn't slept all night, with severe dark circles under her eyes. Only when she saw him did some life return to her. Ethan, she called out, restraining herself. Ethan's expression was neutral. Captain Holloway must believe me now, right? He knew that given Maya's personality, she wouldn't leave easily, so he had deliberately staged this to make her give up completely. But he hadn't expected that even knowing he had slept with someone else, she would still stay. Maya also knew her eavesdropping had been discovered. A flash of embarrassment crossed her face. Then she spoke seriously. Ethan, I don't care about that. As long as you're willing to come back with me. I don't care that you've slept with someone else. I know you don't love her. You're just doing it to get back at me. I know I was wrong. The person I love now is only you, Ethan. I'm sorry for how I treated you before. She looked deeply into his eyes, hoping for his forgiveness. After all, Ethan had loved her so much before. As long as she apologized, he would surely return to her. But Ethan only felt annoyed. He gently pushed Maya away. You don't need to apologize to me. Those things are long past. There's nothing between us anymore. Seeing Ethan about to leave again, Maya grabbed his hand, her tone urgent. Ethan, don't you believe me? If you don't, you can come back with me. I've already made things clear with Owen, and I've told Arthur Miller I'll marry you. Ethan, I'm serious. The more she spoke, the more impatient Ethan became. He roughly shook off Maya's hand. I've already made it very clear, Maya Holloway. I don't love you anymore. Staying here is my own choice. Maya clenched her hands, watching Ethan walk away from her. You don't love me? So you love that Sarah Vance? Even if you don't like me anymore, you can still go back. You don't have to stay here and live this miserable life. Ethan stopped. He turned back, his face calm. That's right. I love Sarah Vance. and living with the person you love isn't a miserable life. He finished speaking and left, without a trace of lingering attachment. Maya stood there for a long time. Those words hurt her more than when Ethan had told her they'd slept together. She stared at his retreating back for a long while, suddenly understanding that Ethan would never turn back for her again. She herself had lost him. Unable to define the emotion in her heart, Maya only felt like she was suffocating. She raised a hand to her face. She hadn't realized when she had started crying. The wedding plans. For the next week, Maya Holloway remained in the village, but she was noticeably more restrained, no longer approaching Ethan with strange declarations. Ethan, though a little puzzled, was fine with it. As long as she didn't bother him, life continued as before. Sometimes he'd go with Sarah to the fields or the lake. Other times, if he was too tired, he'd stay home and cook. He was handsome and had a good personality, so he'd already blended in well with the villagers, often receiving sweet potatoes, and the like. He accepted everything graciously, always remembering to send a portion of whatever he cooked back to the giver. Several weeks passed. It was time for the Harvest Moon Festival. Though the village was poor, they never skipped festival customs. Even if they couldn't afford mooncakes, every household would make a few different kinds of filled pastries. However, Ethan had never made them, and Sarah, having grown up alone, had never tried such delicate work, so they simply had dinner together in the courtyard under the moonlight. After dinner, Sarah went to fetch water. Ethan was clearing the dishes when he heard a knock on the door. Thinking it was Sarah without her key, he was about to tease her when the moment he opened the door, Maya threw her arms around him. "Ethan, I regret it so much. All this time, I kept thinking you'd have a change of heart and come find me. But I've realized you seem genuinely happy." She was drunk, her voice choked with emotion, clinging tightly to him, trying to draw some warmth. Ethan frowned and pulled himself free from her embrace. "Maya Holloway, get a grip." His sharp tone made the usually imposing captain shrink back, not daring to make any further moves. She had stayed in the village all this time, thinking that if Ethan saw her sincerity, he would surely come back for her, so she had waited, secretly watching him. But she discovered that Ethan didn't seem to be faking it. He was genuinely happy in the countryside, like a stubborn wildflower. When no one believed in him, he had managed to stand firm in the mud. She suddenly felt a wave of panic, as if she were truly about to lose him. So today, during the festival, she couldn't resist drinking a little and coming to his house. She wanted to say so much to him, to beg him to come back, but seeing the disgust on Ethan's face, she couldn't utter a word. Even the alcohol seemed to wear off, her eyes red. The usually composed and calm woman had lost her composure, even wanting to recklessly drag him back with her. But she was afraid Ethan would truly hate her. She looked at him for a long time before her voice trembled. "Ethan, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see you. Captain Holloway, I've reminded you many times. I am Sarah Vance's husband now." Ethan spoke coldly, without mercy. Even knowing this fact, hearing these words still pained Maya deeply. She opened her mouth, about to say something, when another voice interrupted. "Ethan, I'm back." It was Sarah, returning with water. In that moment, Maya felt like a pathetic thief, coveting someone else's happiness. She didn't care about anything else and fled. Sarah returned home to find the door unlatched. She closed it properly and approached Ethan. "Why wasn't the door closed? Did I forget?" Ethan chuckled. "Someone just dropped by for a chat and left." Sarah, unsuspecting, took the water bucket to heat it. The next day, Maya Holloway left the village, driving the same small car she had arrived in. She bumped her way out. She had taken leave to come, now only a few days remained. She was a captain. Spending any more time away would lead to dissatisfaction. More importantly, she felt that Ethan had truly found his happiness and no longer needed her. When Sarah heard the news, a look of relief spread across her face. "Finally gone. I thought she was going to freeload here for the rest of her life." Ethan found her amusing. "Even if she freeloaded for a lifetime, she couldn't steal me away. How about we go get a marriage license soon?" In the countryside, once a feast was held, it was generally accepted that you were family. Getting a license required a trip to the county seat, an awareness many people lacked. Sarah didn't think it was troublesome. She was now terrified that someone else would pop up to snatch her husband, so she agreed immediately. She even proposed holding a make-up wedding banquet so everyone in the surrounding villages and 8 townships would know about their relationship. She grinned foolishly, her eyes full of simple, pure love for Ethan. Ethan naturally wouldn't refuse. A new life. However, going to the county seat made him think of a few things. With the government currently encouraging the contracting of barren land, his $100,000 could finally be put to use. Having thought it through, Ethan felt he still needed to discuss it with Sarah, as many things would require her help. In the evening, after they had both finished their chores, Ethan closed the doors and windows and called Sarah into his room. "Sarah, I want to talk to you about something," Ethan said seriously. "Actually, when I came here, I brought a sum of money with me. I want to start a small business in the county seat. Will you go with me?" Sarah was a born and bred country girl. Things like starting a business were in her mind only for rich people. Now her husband was telling her they were going into business too. Her voice couldn't help but carry a note of doubt. "What kind of business would we do? Besides fishing and selling fish, I don't know how to do anything." "Even if you don't know anything, you can still do business, and I'm confident I can do it well." Seeing Ethan's serious expression, Sarah's little bit of worry vanished. She gritted her teeth and pulled out a little more money from her pocket. "All right, this is my private savings. You can have it too, Ethan. Whatever you want to do, just do it. I'll definitely support you." Ethan paused, surprised that this seemingly simple and honest person actually had hidden savings. His expression flickered, finding it both amusing and endearing. He returned the small sum to her. "You should keep your private savings. If the business fails, I'll have to rely on you to support me." He said it with a smile, making Sarah blush crimson once again. For the next few weeks, Ethan was busy with the business. He had a considerable sum in the countryside. He went to the county seat, looked at several shops, and finally chose a medium-sized one. After renovations, he decided to deal in rice. Next, he discussed with the village chief and contracted several families' fields, hiring people to work them. The grain harvested would be sold in his shop. With poverty gradually receding, things would surely get better in the future, and rice was an indispensable item for every household. He and Sarah worked hard for several months, finally settling everything and officially opening for business. At the same time, to make it a double celebration, his and Sarah's wedding banquet was also held on this day. No Arthur Miller, no Owen Grant, and no Maya Holloway. His life would definitely get better and better from now on. He looked at the person beside him and smiled genuinely.